Welcome to Community Matters on WCIC. It's a place to talk about important topics that impact individuals and families living in the WCIC community. I'm your host, Brian Williamson. This week on Community Matters, talking about your pets and actually pet safety in the springtime. Talking with Laura Vorreyer with the Pet Sitter's Tale. Laura has a book that is out about this and some expertise as well when it comes to your pets and making sure that they're good and safe in the springtime. Laura, first, thanks for taking the time to be on the program. And second, just, how did you get involved in this topic? And I assume you're a pet lover by writing this book, no doubt.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, and I'm certainly glad to be here and share some advice I have about keeping your pet safe.
Sure.
Especially in the springtime when so many wild animals are starting to come out and about. Maybe they were hibernating or, just so not around when it's rainy and cold. And so now we're starting to see a lot of animals, especially in the spring. They're having the babies, they're making their babies.
Yeah.
So we got to keep our domestic pets safe from, kind of inadvertently crossing their paths and making them mad.
Have a harmony in the animal kingdom, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so some people might not be aware, I don't think I was aware, that a coyote, for example, can jump a 6-foot fence. Oh, man, that is something that I guess we don't plan for most of the times there. And you think that the pets are all safe and fine in that enclosed backyard, but it looks like some of these coyotes are getting a little fierce out there. What are some thoughts on that there, Laura, when it comes to that idea that, well, I have a fence, so it's okay?
Well, yeah, you know what? A lot of animals don't see that fence as any sort of, trouble to just leap or get over, or especially at night. If they're traveling at night for food, coyotes can jump a fence, and very easily so, and they can jump straight up over your fence. So it's not really a good idea to put your animals out at night or to let them have access to the backyard. Some people have dog doors, but the problem that I find with having a dog door is a lot of my clients said, oh my gosh, if my dog wants to go out in the middle of the night, he just goes out, but then you wake up in the morning and there's a raccoon family in your kitchen.
Yeah.
What can go out can also come in. So it's also a good idea to close that off. And then in the middle of the night, if your pets do have to go out, some pets do have to go out in the middle of the night.
Sure.
It's really mandatory that you want to turn on those lights, make a lot of noise when you go outside, let your presence be known, because you don't want to startle any creature that might be in your backyard just hoping to snack on your pet.
Keeping your pets safe. Talking with Laura Vorreyer. She wrote The Pet Sitter's Tale, and some expertise here for pet owners. Of course, we love our furry friends and want to make sure that they are okay. And the idea of keeping your dog on a leash, I admit that I see a little bit of both in the neighborhood. Some people have the dogs on the leash, some people don't. I assume that the safer option is keeping the dog on the leash. And Laura, you actually have a personal example of this, right?
Oh, yes, many. Well, listen, it's always difficult to control a dog. They have their own minds and their own instincts. So even if you have a dog that is excellently trained, a reaction to seeing a squirrel or a cat or something in the bushes across the street, the instinct is to just run. And even if you say no or stop or whatever the word is that you've taught your pet to listen to, they might not listen in that moment, and that could lead to tragedy, unfortunately. So always on a leash, always keep your dogs on a leash that you can control. So I never recommend using retractable leashes. So you want to use a lead that's, a nylon or a leather lead that's about 6 foot, so that you can bring your pet back to you in case you see danger. Because as we were talking earlier, coyotes can come and entice dogs to play with them, especially younger coyotes. They look like dogs, and they will get dogs to play with them and try and lure that dog away from its owner, away from its own, people and its own pack, and appear friendly, and then you see the bigger coyotes sort of close in, and then, it's all over for that pup. So you really need to watch that, coyotes aren't around, or, I know you guys are in Peoria. There's a lot of wildlife there.
Sure.
And now in the springtime, we're seeing a lot of snakes. We've had a cold, wet, rainy season in winter, so we're seeing a lot of snakes now waking up from their hibernation and coming out to find sunshine and food. So we've got to be on the lookout for snakes as well.
Talking with Laura Vorreyer from The Pet Sitter's Tale, the book she wrote there on Community Matters on WCIC. I'm your host, Brian Williamson, and in the springtime, some just added risks for pets that involve some other wild animals, some of the less friendly furry folks out there that are in the way of our pet safety sometimes. And so Laura has some tips here for making sure that your pet does stay safe. One of the things, just knowing commands. Is that right, Laura, that your pet knows commands? Why is that important?
So important, because you want to make sure your dog will listen to you and return to you. That is the number one command that it's not really mandatory that dogs know too many things, but absolutely should know their name, off, and come. So, it's so important that you can reliably trust your pet to listen to you. There's no worse feeling than being on a trail, hiking, walking with your pet, and your pet sees something, and now they're running, and you're hiking, and you're yelling for them, and they're not coming back, and maybe you spend hours in the woods searching for your pet, and, it's getting dark, it's getting cold, and they haven't returned. So always keep treats on you. Okay, that's nothing wrong with nothing wrong with a little bribery. Keep treats on you, because if you're calling to your pet and they do come back, and it was sort of up in the air if they would come back, if you have that high-value treat, the hot dog, the cold cut, the thing that is above and beyond the regular treat, they will always come back to you, because they will always think they're going to get that treat. So if you're going to let your dog off the leash, or if the leash gets away from you, let's say you're walking your dog, and it just happens so fast, right? That's how people say. It happened so fast. You didn't have time to react. So when you're walking your pet, and maybe you're not paying so much attention, you have a loose lead, they see something in the bushes, and boom, they're gone. You can call them back. Hopefully they'll come back to you, and you'll give them that high reward treat, and then they'll always know to come back, because, they might get that tasty tidbit.
Yeah, for sure. Laura, you mentioned a little bit earlier about the snakes and the possibility of those being out and about there. Is it possible to train a dog to actually not go near a snake?
There is, and I know in my area there are a lot of veterinarians that offer, rattlesnake aversion training. So there is aversion training, absolutely, but you want to make sure that you keep your dog on the lead, because so many times snakes really won't get aggressive unless they're, bothered. Yeah. A lot of snakes are coming out from underneath houses or out of the bush, and they just want to find a warm, sunny place to, you'll find them laying in the road, or they're laying on your path. We have a lot of them out here in Southern California. And what you want to do is make sure you go around the snake, never step over snake. And a lot of times what happens, dogs will get bit by snakes, is because they're curious, and they're putting their nose down to the ground, and, that is irritating to the snake, so you might want to take a nibble out of your dog like that. Or dogs mistakenly pick up snakes because they think they're sticks. So, want to be sure that you're not playing your fetch in an area that has snakes. And it's a good idea to maybe walk the grounds if you're going to let your dog off leash, and look around for any sort of critters that, might be bothersome to your own pet.
Laura Vorreyer, the author for The Pet Sitter's Tale. She is a pet expert and has spent years working with animals. She's our guest this week on Community Matters on WCIC. I'm your host, Brian Williamson. The Pet Sitter's Tale. Laura, what made you want to write that book, and what are some things that folks can find in that book?
I just wanted to share the joy of loving pets with people that I had known. I'm from Chicago myself, and from corporate America, and I came out to LA and sort of just accidentally became a pet sitter and a dog walker. And so many of my friends back in Chicago were like, what, you're what? What are you doing? And I kind of wrote the book for them to just sort of illustrate and shine a light on, like, what a professional pet sitter does, and what a professional dog walker does, and what kind of life in that industry in that field is like, because it's completely different than what I was doing before, and not anything I was expecting to do. And so shining a light on that, and of course illustrating how perfectly normal it is to love your pet just as much as you would any other member of your family, and sometimes more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why not more, right? Oh, sure do love our furry friends, I tell you. The thought of just keeping our pets safe, Laura, in general, I mean, just some some tips overall that you might offer for a pet owner when it comes to this time of year, or in general, anything you'd like to throw out there just as ways that people can keep their pets safe?
Yes, absolutely. So keep your pet on the leash. That's the number one. Second, don't allow them access to the backyard at night when you're not going to be out there with them. And don't let them wander off by themselves. I mean, it's hardly heard of anymore. But people did used to just let their dogs wander around, but not so much anymore. And keep your cats indoors too. Yeah. A lot of people will let their cats out and think, oh yeah, my cat's just gonna go out and do cat business and come wandering back. Well, unfortunately, the truth is a lot of cats don't wander back because, they will come face to face with raccoons, right, or they might come face to face with coyotes, or God forbid, cars. So you want to make sure, especially at night, because, at night it's really their world. It's really the wild animals' world. They have slept during the day. They awaken at nighttime, and they are ready to come out and play, hunt for food, and go about their business. So while we're sleeping, they're very active. A lot of these wild animals are nocturnal. So keep your pets safe. Keep them indoors, especially at night.
Laura, any devices or any kind of things that pet owners can carry around on walks in case maybe encountering an unfriendly animal, an unfriendly wild animal, that is?
I see a lot of people, especially where I live, there's a lot of coyotes. I see a lot of people carrying golf clubs
wow.
and canes and sticks and baseball bats. But I find it, listen, who wants to walk their dog with a 9-iron, right? So what I recommend is you can get an air horn, and now someone's told me about an air horn app. So you put that app on your smartphone. Yeah. So basically any loud noise is really going to scare any animal away, and yourself too, because they're quite loud. So you want to be sure that without actually getting, very close to the animal, as soon as you spot them, you're going to make that air horn noise, and they're going to run away. It doesn't matter how fierce they are. Loud noises startle and scare animals, and they're going to run away. So you're going to make sure that you have the ability to make that loud noise immediately. Don't be looking and digging through your purse or your wallets or for the thing. Just have it on your app, have it ready to hit, and anything you can do to scare them away is going to keep you and your pet safer.
Author and pet care expert Laura Vorreyer, the guest this week on Community Matters on WCIC. She wrote the book The Pet Sitter's Tale with some tips there for pet owners on keeping those furry friends safe. Laura, for somebody just joining the broadcast right now, a little overview of why spring in particular is such an area of concern when it comes to pet safety.
Absolutely, Brian. So spring is a time when, a lot of wild animals are emerging from hibernation. They've gone through a long, sleepy, wet, and cold winter, and they're out. They're hunting, they're mating, they're having their babies, and, there's a lot of food out there to be had for the wild animals, and your dog or cat might look like food to them. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you've got your eyeballs on your pets, and you have your pets, especially your dogs, on leashes.
Laura, where can folks find The Pet Sitter's Tale?
Absolutely. You can find the book online at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website where I also have a lot of information about keeping your pet safe and just pet advice in general. And it's also available on Audible if you like to listen while you're commuting in the car or while you're walking your own dog.
Well, that's great. Laura Vorreyer, the author of The Pet Sitter's Tale here on Community Matters. Laura, just any final thoughts for pet owners, or just some, I don't know, if you had one key thing that you wanted to share with a pet owner for whether it's keeping their pet safe or just in general, feel free to throw it out there.
Absolutely. Please keep your pet safe. And, honestly, if you're looking for a new pet, please adopt, don't shop, and be sure to make sure that you make sure your dogs are identifiable. So if that means wearing a collar with an embroidered name and phone number on it, or making sure that they have that microchip, because unfortunately pets do get lost somehow. It's no fault of their own. They do get lost, but you want to make sure that they can be found again. So make sure that you've got identification on your pet.
All good advice. Laura Vorreyer, thanks so much for joining us this week, Laura. And again, the book title is The Pet Sitter's Tale. Some good safety advice here for pet owners. Laura, appreciate all the insights.
Thank you so much.
If there's a topic in your community that you'd like to discuss, just email me, Brian at WCIC-FM.org. That's BRIAN at WCIC-FM.org. Thanks for listening to Community Matters on WCIC.